Hey guys, the Common Man here. So today I'm going to be doing a quick disassembly video of this guy right here. This is the Microtech Stitch. This is an absolute beast of a knife. I really enjoy it, and it's featuring their very unique, very robust Ram-Lok, which honestly is fast becoming probably, well, easily one of my favorite locking systems. And I don't know, it might actually be up there as #1 for my favorite locks on a knife. And so I have the Microtech Stitch as well as the Microtech MSI, which I can grab just to show you guys two versions of this Ram-Lok. And I'm telling you what, these things are just monsters. I really love them, really enjoy them. And I'm going to assume that the construction on them is pretty much the same. However, I can't really say without taking them both apart. We're not going to do that today. I'm only going to be focusing on the Microtech Stitch today. The reason I decided I want to take it apart is because I do have a little bit of a gritty action. I have owned this for some time now. I did get it secondhand as well, so I'm sure it's in need of a good cleaning anyway. So we are going to go ahead and take it apart. We're going to clean it up. We're going to see if we can smooth up that action a little bit. And yeah, let's go ahead and just get into it. One thing I really love about this knife is the big, strong, robust hardware. I mean, you're using, I'm pretty sure this is a T10, T8s on the body screws. Lots of screws on this, so unfortunately this is going to be a little bit of a, I'm not going to say complicated disassembly, but there's going to be a lot of, I guess, a lot of pieces to take apart. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. We're going to do, let's see, oh wow, is this a T10? Okay, so this is a T10, and yet that pivot screw is bigger than that. Wow. Okay, guys, so this is a T15 on that pivot. That's pretty cool. A T15 on the pivot screw. I'm super happy to see that, and I'm also extremely happy to see that it is a one-sided screw, which means that this side should be captured, so you only need one tool to disassemble it, and that's always a good thing. And I think what we're going to do is just go ahead and take this screw completely out. Now I'm leaving the blade open. What you could do, I actually had a viewer comment on one of my videos saying I should put some tape on the blade when you're disassembling a knife. That's an incredible idea. I think it's a really good idea. I'm not going to do it because I'm pretty confident in my ability to not cut myself. However, if you want to be extra safe, definitely throw a piece of like masking tape on that blade. Another good idea is to pick up one of those mats from various retailers. Those disassembly mats, so you can keep all of your hardware kind of organized. And it's, you know, usually they're just nice rubber mats. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead. I think we're just going to go ahead and work from this side. We're going to start taking all these body screws off. I am going to try to leave all of the screws kind of in an orientation on my table so that I can kind of remember where they all go. Whenever I take a knife apart, I always use the underside as my reference point so that I can have my screws kind of set up on my table to kind of reflect where they go on the knife. Some consistency in disassembling knives can make it a little bit easier when reassembling. And then also, I just want to say, so I did have a viewer comment on one of my videos. It was actually my last my Spyderco Spy Mito video. He thought that I had potentially been affiliated with some of these retailers here. I am not affiliated with any of these retailers, so any of these stickers you see on my table, I put them there because, I don't know, it looks a little more interesting than just a blank piece of whatever this is, vinyl. So I just throw some stickers up there just for you guys to look at, but just please understand, I'm not affiliated with any of these retailers. I just really enjoy purchasing knives from them. So again, those stickers are there just so you guys have something to look at. And then I think that's it. So those are all the screws. So I just went ahead and took out the pivot screw and all the body screws, and then I am going to go ahead and take this side scale off. Okay. So then this, I don't know if, I think I did, no, I didn't upload a video on pocket clip replacement, but I don't think I'm going to take these out. What this is a metal insert for these screws to thread into. So these metal plates are actually, they sandwich this G10 scale. If you're going to swap the pocket clip to the other side, Let's see, I'm not sure if this is the one that I should be showing you. So the pocket clip, obviously the screws go through the pocket clip and then through the G10 scale. So they thread into this metal plate here, which is just kind of, it sits down into this little groove. So when you're swapping the pocket clip or replacing the pocket clip, this little plate is going to want to fall out when you remove those screws. So if you're going to remove the pocket clip or change the pocket clip location, you need to kind of put something down in the knife to hold that plate in place, unless you're just going to take off one of these scales. Now I will say that was a pretty easy process taking off the scale. So if you're going to swap out the pocket clip or swap the location, it may be worth just taking one of the scales out so you can hold that plate in place. Because if you do it when the knife is fully assembled, it's a real pain in the butt trying to keep that from being pushed in as you're trying to put those screws in. But let's see. Is there any reason to fully disassemble this knife, as in take off this other side scale? Because I may be able to accomplish what I need to by leaving all the parts in place. Let's see. But you know what, I think maybe just for the purposes of the video and demonstration, I think I am going to go ahead and fully take it apart. Let's do it. That way we can just take a look at all of its components. Now this is where things can get a little bit hairy. I'm going to hold some pressure on that blade there while I take this side scale off, because I don't want things to go flying. I know that there's a coil spring on that disengagement bar, on that Ram-Lok, but I don't think when I take this scale off anything should go flying. Yeah, okay. Cool. Alright, wow, look at the size of that bearing. I love that. I'm telling you what, when you see a bearing of that size and a knife, that makes me really happy, because generally what that means is that you can get a good solid lockup with no blade play, and it's going to be nice and smooth. It's going to give you a lot more support on that blade to help eliminate blade play or anything like that. So anyway, what I'm saying is I love to see large washers. I love to see large bearings, just because it does help to provide a much more solid lockup. And I think what we're going to do is just lift the blade right off of that pivot. I am pulling back the Ram-Lok right now. You know, I'm not sure if that's... No, let's go ahead and just push. So this pivot pin will actually push right out. And then, so I push that down most of the way, and then I think what I'm going to do is just try to pull the blade off. Let's see. And I'm actually curious. It might... Interesting. So I'm trying to see... You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just take that Ram-Lok right out. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but all of these body screws are going to be T8s. So yes, T8s for the body screws, and let's go ahead and... So this is where this coil spring probably will go flying, if at any point it might. Alright, so... Put that on. I need to change the location of these screws. I'm going to move them over a little bit. They are getting dangerously close to the side of my table. But I think we're going to be okay. Again, just holding pressure on everything. This is certainly where this coil spring would go flying. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, lots of parts on this thing. Alright, so there is the Ram-Lok, the actual lock itself. The coil spring and its, I guess, kind of like perch. Put that up there. And then there is actually a barrel that goes inside that coil spring. Perch or mount or whatever you want to call it. And then now that gives us some better access to pull that blade off of the pivot barrel. Put the blade right there. Pivot barrel can come out. Come on this side of the knife. And then again, I guess just for demonstration purposes, we will go ahead and disassemble the entire knife. Minus the pocket clip. I'm not going to take the pocket clip apart because that's pretty straightforward, guys. I don't think we need to go through that. Put that there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and... Ooh, I hope this should be pretty straightforward. I'm not missing anything. It's probably somewhat of a press fit. Oh, there we go. Okay. There is the titanium back spacer with some, looks like some barrel spacers pressed into it. I'm going to put this on this side. Again, I'm just trying to keep orientation. Alright, and then that goes there. Awesome. Okay, and then that leaves us with just the two side scales with the pocket clip and the pocket clip threaded insert there. Very nice. I'm telling you what, I love these scales. I really am happy that I picked up the frag pattern version of this knife. Like I said, I bought it used and in really, really good condition, obviously, but I'm absolutely loving it. Get a little more coffee. It's pretty early. This is much earlier than I'm usually up and about, but my wife's got the boys, and I woke up and decided, you know what, it's a good time to shoot a quick video. So there we go. So that's going to pop right out. I think I was doing that off screen. Alright, so that bearing popped out. Let's see if this bearing will come right out. Not sure if it's going to come out easily. I may have to use this little pin. See if we can kind of separate. There we go. Perfect. Alright, well that pin worked great. Awesome. So now we are, again, pretty much fully disassembled. You can see all the parts. They're all in the screen, but anyway. There's all the parts. It's a little bit more than I expected, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and start cleaning them up. And thankfully, with this being a knife on bearings, this is going to be a little bit of a kind of a simpler cleanup process or simpler tuning process, because generally when I have a knife that runs on washers, what I like to do is put a little polish on the washers by kind of rubbing them against my stropping pad. If you're curious about that process, I think on my Para 3 video, as well as my Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight video, the disassembly videos, I kind of showed how I do that, how I polish up the washers to help give a nice smooth action with no blade play. So we're just going to clean all this up. Got my isopropyl, so let's go ahead and put some on my rag here. Try to use somewhat of a clean spot. I use the crap out of these microfiber rags, guys. If I get a knife, and I know I'm probably going to be hanging on to it, I do generally try to keep all of the contents of knife packages with the knife, because I do buy and sell knives fairly often. But if I get a knife that I know I'm going to hang on to for a while, I definitely use the microfibers, and yeah, I'd certainly put them to use. So we're just going to go ahead and clean these up with some alcohol. And like I said, the majority of the knife is in pretty good shape. So it's just going to be basically just a quick wipe down for a lot of these components. Nothing too crazy here. You know, the main focus, what you really need to focus on is going to be the pivot. Anything in the pivot. Make sure that you kind of, you know, get your rag up in that pivot where the pivot barrel is going to ride. Make sure you get the surfaces, you know, the bearings, the bearing track on the blade. Make sure you get the pivot barrel itself. Those are going to be the very important components. And then also any locking surfaces, make sure you clean those up very well. And then also, it's very important that any of these locking and, you know, mating surfaces for the lock itself, make sure you do not apply any lubrication to those, because lubrication can, ironically, it actually can cause lock stick. So you want to make sure that those stay unlubricated. Those are supposed to be just straight metal on metal mating surfaces. So this video is, I can tell, going to be very long. So let's go ahead and just, when we don't want to waste any more time, let's go ahead and just start the reassembly process. So we're going to put that in there. I think I am going to just go ahead and put this backspacer back on. And so I don't use Loctite on any of these body screws. So let's go ahead and put this, go ahead and put the lock back in. Let's see, and this does have kind of like a D-shaped insert, so it does sit down in there. And then we will, let's see, should go just like that. Yep. So we'll slip that over there. That goes down in there. Good, so that fits nicely. And then I guess we'll put this one in here. Okay. Make sure that operates well. Oh. Perfect. All right, so that's good. Okay, so all of those sides, you know what, let's go ahead and put this, we'll put the stop pin back in as well. Or actually, I don't know if that's a, yeah, I believe that is a stop pin. Okay. Oop. Oh, dang it. This is when magnetized screwdrivers get a little annoying. You kind of have to put it on the screwdriver rather than start it in the thread sometimes because it wants to pull it out. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, honestly, this is actually surprisingly simple. I'm really impressed with the construction of this knife. It looks complicated. It's a little bit intimidating when you first look at it, but honestly, it's really not hard at all. Taking this apart and putting it back together. That's probably too much lube, to be honest with you, but that's okay. Go ahead and... Alright, sorry guys, I'm struggling with some iPhone storage issues. Yeah, I actually film all of my videos on an iPhone. I don't even have a very good laptop, so literally this whole channel is run off of an iPhone, so I'm constantly having to deal with storage problems. I'm having to transfer stuff off of my iPhone onto an old MacBook, and it's just a constant issue of my camera telling me you are out of storage, and I'm having to end recording. And anyway, so moral of the story, I would probably get yourself a laptop if you're going to start a YouTube channel, and maybe some actual cameras, because this does get a little frustrating running it off of an iPhone. But anyway, so I did, yeah, I put probably a little bit too much lubrication on there, but you know, that's all right. It's not the end of the world. I'm not sure why this, there we go, that slipped on there quite nicely. You know, the issue you're going to run into if you put too much lube is dust and dirt may build up on the knife. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one drop instead of two. I usually put 2 drops on either side, but I'm just going to do one, and that should roll around on those bearings quite nicely and lubricate it well. So that's done. Yeah, honestly, this assembly process is surprisingly simple. It's really not too bad. And you notice I haven't used any Loctite yet because I just don't think it's necessary on these steps. And now, there we go. That's in place. Make sure everything is fully seated, and it is. Very good. Locked into position. Good. Put that scale back on. And then we'll just finish up the body screws, and these should all... That one almost looks larger. Hold on. Interesting. Okay, so actually these back, it just happened that I grabbed all the right screws. I guess setting them up over here in the proper orientation does help. These are actually thicker screws back here on the back spacer. So make sure you put the thicker diameter screws on the back spacer back here, and then the smaller diameter screws actually go into the stop pin and the lock, I guess, what do you want to call that? The lock mount, the spring bar, or something like that. But anyway, so 2 thicker screws go in the 2 back slots, and then the 2 thinner go in the 2 forwardmost slots. I'm not totally cranking these down. Like I always do, body screws I leave not loose, but just kind of snug. I just make them kind of snug because I do fully expect to have to tune the pivot, and it's just going to work better tuning the pivot if those body screws are a little, just a tad bit loose, because what you do is you get the pivot where you want it, and then you lock down the body screws, and then you go back to the pivot and make sure it's still functioning the way you want it. And we'll cross our fingers that this tuning process goes well. It usually is much easier if the pivot barrel is like a single-sided screw and has a like a pinned kind of construction, or a fixed, what do you want to call it, like a captured pin. Usually that makes the tuning process much simpler. So we're going to go ahead and screw down, and you notice I use just a very small amount of Loctite, very small amount. And I love this style of Loctite because you saw how I just put the screw on the screwdriver and then just kind of dipped it in. I actually learned that method from Nick Shabazz, from watching his videos. That's how he does it, and I really love doing it the same way. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and crank that down. What I do is I go snug, and then I just kind of, well, you know what? In this case, we're going to go just kind of snug and see what happens. Okay. Wow. We just about nailed it. Let's see. And I am actually just going to back it off just a hair, because I did go a little bit, and actually I just did a little too much. Let's try that. Alright, so that is pretty tight. So we're going to back it off just a tad. And these are just tiny little adjustments that I'm making. Alright, a little bit of blade play. I think the reason it felt tight is because of that Ram-Lok. I'm going to tighten that up again. Yeah, it is still pretty tight. Blade play is there a little bit. Tighten that up again. Now what I'm going to do is check for blade play. No blade play. I am going to go through now and tighten up all of these body screws. And these back body screws I did tighten most of the way. Front ones I did leave a little bit looser. Those are all nice and tight. Alright. So do remember, this knife, it wasn't perfectly drop shutty when I got it. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be. I do think that it will get to that point, I hope, over continual use, but it does feel quite nice. It feels about where it was when I had it. And let's just make sure there's no blade play. There is no blade play. And okay, now that I feel, all right, so what's happening is that lubricant is now working its way through those pivots, and it is actually smoothing up quite nicely, and you can see it is, yeah, that is exactly where I had it before. So I think this knife just still needs a little bit of a break-in period, because if I loosen that pivot any more than that, I might get a little bit of blade play, and I don't want that. My philosophy, honestly, or at least the way I enjoy knives, is I want no blade play, even if that means a slightly tighter pivot. But to be honest with you, that's very acceptable. I'm quite happy with that. So very cool. Let's go ahead and check blade centering. Blade centering is pretty good. Let's see if we can actually, blade centering could be a little bit better, I'll be honest. We're going to loosen that up. You don't want to go loosening, tightening too much, because that Loctite does need to set up. Very effective metal complex method, which I really love, because it does work very well. Tighten that down. What you do is you just shove a piece of paper to push it over to the side. So if it's wanting to stay over towards this side of the scale, if it's kind of off to this side more than center, you just push a piece of paper in between the scale and that side of the blade to push it over the opposite way. Tighten down the pivot. Pull that out. And tiny bit of blade play. Tighten it back up. Still a tiny bit. A little notch there. And then, oh yeah. And that blade centering to me looks pretty good. Maybe a tad towards the pocket clip side, but honestly that's very acceptable to me. And the action is right where we had it. Beautiful. No blade play. Good action. Blade centering is good. Yeah, good enough. Maybe I'll play around with that a little bit. Really quick, I just want to add, I did do that, what I call the metal complex method, because he is the one who created it. But I did that, and then I basically shoved the piece of paper in there, and so that it pushed all the way over to the side. And then I actually went ahead and loosened all of the body screws while the piece of paper was still in. I then went back and tightened all of the body screws, and you can see I got that blade centering perfect. Awesome. Anyway, guys, that took way longer than I expected, but the process was surprisingly simple, even though this has a quite a bit of hardware on it. But anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Leave a comment if you have anything to add, or if you've tried taking this apart and it's giving you some trouble. Definitely leave a comment below. Like the video if you enjoyed, and if you want to see more of my knife, EDC, and occasional garage content, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you. Thanks.